Welcome to Support Ministry Trax number 2. My title is Breaking the Lid Off of Your Leadership, and I've got 3 points. We're going through greater margin, greater capacity, and greater reach. So I'm just going to pray real quick before we get started. And if you just pray with me here, Lord, we just ask that you would be with us, Lord, over the next 50 minutes, God, as we just spend time as people that serve in your house, Lord. I just pray that this time together would bring you glory, and God, that you would just speak through me, God, that if people are coming in with questions or wondering how to take their ministries or their leadership into the next level, God, that your wisdom would just be in this place, God, that there would be just new ideas that would flow out of conversation amongst us, God. And we also lift up every other track that's happening in here right now, God, from the lead pastors to kids to worship and young adults, God, that you would just be in those meetings, God, and you would just, Lord, just do something new in your people, God. We just pray all these things in your name. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, a little bit about me. I've just told myself, remember to breathe and slow down. So I'm going to try to do that. So I have the absolute privilege of being on staff full-time here at LifeSpring Church. So this is my home church. And I also get to be the MFI administrator. So I'm kind of double dipping from both ends this weekend, which is amazing. It's a little bit of work, but the teams are fantastic and have been doing a great job. And so I really just get to say, hey, make sure this happens. And then lo and behold, it happens, which is absolutely fantastic. So my primary role right now in this season is overseeing our Sunday morning teams, with the exception of kids ministry and worship ministry. We have a kids pastor, Yulani, who is actually speaking in kids right now. And then my lead pastor, Pastor Deanne, who is also our worship pastor, who is speaking in the worship track right now. So we're all speaking at the same time, which is fun. And so anything else that happens on a Sunday morning is my responsibility, from media to greeters to prayer ministry to parking. That's kind of my purview. So the team gets all the credit, and if something goes wrong, that's my fault. I'm so sorry. That's my fault. But it's fantastic, and I'm also shifting away. We've recently worked on our org chart here in the church. I will say I'm a type A nerd. I like spreadsheets. I like org charts. I like to know my lane, and I just want to stay in it. So please give me direction and clarity, which is exactly what Brenton talked about, which was phenomenal. And so for that, I'm shifting into overseeing Sunday teams and communications, because I figured I didn't have enough kind of on the go. So I'm all forms of channels of communications in the church. So I have been on staff since 2019. I was offered a part-time 8 hours a week to oversee our First Impressions. And I was still working full-time in an orthodontic practice, office manager, and I had done that for 10 years. And then 2 years ago, I was feeling a bit of a shift and just knew that, hey, 10 years here was great, but I feel like I need to move on. And so I started applying for jobs, because when I have something in my head, I just go and do it. And so I started applying for jobs, and nobody would hire me. And I was getting so frustrated. I'm like, God, what is going on? Like, nobody's hiring me. I'm not applying for jobs like outside of my experience or things like that. And so I'm sitting there kind of getting mad at God, as I can. And then within a couple of months, my pastor approaches me and says, hey, we've had some shift in staff. Would you come on 3 days a week? And I said, oh, funny that. Yes, I have time, and I don't have a job. And so Pastor Brian offered me a job. So I went from being his pastoral assistant 8 hours to overseeing some teams and helping with worship and things like that. I cannot sing. I'm terrible playing guitar. But, I can program a track and things like that. So, Thanks, Sophia. So, bringing us to last year, where we grafted Hill City Church, which was at this location, which was another MFI church. Hill City grafted into LifeSpring Church. And so our church, from this little building where we sardined in about 250 people with 20 parking stalls, we transplanted our church here. We became LifeSpring Church. the staffs came together, the congregations came together. The leadership of Hill City did step down, though Pastor Mitch is now one of our associate pastors. He oversees all of our care, pastoral care here in the church. And like Sophia, Amazing Hill City administrator, came on and is now a LifeSpring administrator. And so that was huge for me, from just kind of slowly learning how to oversee teams. And then all of a sudden we go from 250, 270 to 550 like that. One Sunday it was like, hey, June 17th, June 18th, we're doing Father's Day at our church. And then June 25th, we're here and I'm supposed to lead teams. And I don't even know how to turn on the coffee machine. And it was crazy. I'm going to say it was crazy, but it was God. Honestly, if somebody was like, hey, well, this is great. You got more space and more parking stalls and this is good. And I said, no amount of parking stalls is worth the pressure and the tension of bringing two churches together. Right? Like it's not. No, you could give me 500 parking stalls and it's not there. But we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that God had called this. Both eldership teams had gotten words. They'd come together and it was just so clear God's hand was on it. And so I said, hey, well, if God's calling us to it, he's going to lead us through it. So we're just going to put one foot in front of the other and just believe that with hearts aligned and unity as our goal, we are going to make it. And here we are. We just celebrated our year anniversary at the end of June. And so, I mean, God is doing amazing things. And I'm so incredibly grateful because let me be clear, it is not us that is doing this. We have a part to play, but it's so much more about, what God is doing in the people. So that's a little bit about what has brought me to this place and a little bit about what I do here. And so I do want to say this as a quick side. If your church ever goes through something like that, you go through, we called it a graft. Some churches would call it a merge, depending on, it's a bit more about practicalities with leadership and things like that. If your church ever goes through that, I would love to talk to you. If that is ever something that God puts on your houses, not to tell you how to do it right, but to tell you what not to do, because I learned plenty of that. But honestly, when we were going through it, I didn't know of any other churches within our area to reach out to say like, hey, how did you handle teams and how did you handle people and what did that look like? And so my email is here. I wanted to just throw that out there. If you guys want to write that down, again, I don't have all the answers and I'm fairly new to ministry, but I've made a lot of mistakes and I can share from that wisdom for sure. So yeah, another thing about me is that I am definitely an introvert. So bad. most people wouldn't think that when they find me on a Sunday morning, but it's been a developed skill. I've learned how to be on for Sundays and connect with people and it changed my life. Like whether somebody was an extrovert or an introvert, they loved me all the same on a Sunday morning. And I just thought, you know what? Regardless of my personality type, that's what I want to be for other people. And so it just means that I have to have a good awareness of my schedule, rhythms, my commitments, and just make sure that I am taking the time I need to recharge. I love spending time with people. I just know that there will come a time when this version of Jackie just takes a turn. And it's like, I don't want to subject you to that. So I'm just going to go have a nap. And then I come back. And I remember actually the first MFI conference, 2019, Pastor Brian invited me to a national out at City Life. And I had never been to one, had no idea what was going on. And he's like, hey, just come on out. It was Monday night. Worship was great. I love worship. And the word is great. And so they say, okay, guys, we're going to go have food and fellowship at the back. Make sure you go talk to 3 people that you don't know. I'm out. I did not mentally prepare to talk to strangers. I said to Pastor Brian, I said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to sleep. And I'll come back tomorrow and I'll talk to strangers then, because now I know what's happening. And so I say all of that because when I first started working on I had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew was that Pastor Brian said, hey, will you be my assistant and will you oversee First Impressions? I had been serving on First Impressions at the time. Unfortunately, the pastor who was overseeing our First Impressions had to take a season and step down. And so that was 2 weeks before we went to 2 services. And I went from door greeting and seating people to, okay, in 2 weeks we're going to 2 services and now I'm leading the team and I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but great people, great team, we're going to figure it out. And so we went to 2 services, and that's how I started. And so now I'm, 9 months in, I'm at this MFI conference, and I was like, man, like, what do I do here? I'm not a lead pastor. How do I make the most of this, I guess, is kind of my heart. And so I made sure I had a question to ask lead pastors. I said, hey, what do you look for in an assistant? What is it? How can I be the best assistant for my pastor? Because I have no idea what I'm doing, but you know what you're looking for. So if you could just tell me what that is, then I can take that and I can go, because my pastor is such an encourager. He's not big on giving correction. It's not that he won't, but he's just like, it's not a problem. I'm not gonna nitpick and pull things apart. You're doing a great job. What I've had to learn with my pastor is that he's so much an encourager, but I recognize what it is that he values based on the things that he celebrates. Hey, when you show up early, that meant so much to me. Great. So if I don't show up early, that bothers him. Those are the things that where he may not say, like, hey, you got to show up early, which, by the way, I'm terrible at, really, really bad at. But it's things like that, right? So you kind of got to read between the lines, and every person's going to be a little bit different. And so I just went around asking pastors. The first time I met Claude and Michelin Laney, and I just said, hey, what are you looking for? And it meant the world that they would share with me. And so that's just kind of how I started in ministry. And Brenton touched on it. I'm actually going to just kind of skim my notes as I go here, because he actually hit on a lot of things that I was going to share as far as margin goes, which is organization, communication, clarity, things that really help you get aligned in ministry. Because if you don't know what it is you're supposed to be doing, it's really hard to figure out how to get to the next step, right? How do you grow what you're doing if you're not even sure what it is you're supposed to be doing at step 1? And so I started, as I do, like I said, with looking for a job. I just was like, okay, I need to find a job. I'm just going to go apply. Did I pray about it? No, I'm not. I'm still working on my holiness, guys. It's a glory to glory situation. But I got to a point, I would say about 2 years in, where I was feeling extremely overwhelmed, because I had put all of this pressure on me, not from my pastors, not from my leaders, my perfectionist type A, put it on myself. And I got into this mindset of, well, if I'm not here on a Sunday to make sure the teams are running, then it's all going to fall apart. And my friend and my pastor at the time came to me and he said, if you aren't here, this is still going to work, right? I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, if you're gone for a month, like, we need to talk about it. But if church is still going to happen, worship is still going to go, people are still going to agree, people are still going to experience the presence of God. And honestly, that took a huge weight off of me, because I was starting to actually feel resentful that I had to be there every Sunday. And my heart was just taking a wrong direction, right? And we don't want to serve from that place. And so I go to this national conference the 2 years later. We're in Lake Mount, shout out. Fantastic job hosting. And right after that, I can really feel the Lord just ministering to me in worship time. And my pastor, Pastor Brian, reposts Nate Finocchio's Instagram post. And it was 5 podcasts that he recommends. And on that list was Leading Second. And I heard that and I was like, okay, like that sounds interesting. So I listened to one episode. I binge listened to 100 episodes in 3 weeks. The podcast has absolutely changed my life. And it changed the way I looked at ministry. And I'm going to read the Leading Second Creed to you. It's something that they have on their website. And this is the heart of Leading Second. And this is what I said, this is how I am going to do ministry. It says this: I am a Christ follower called to build the local church. I am a leader serving a vision bigger than myself. I champion the uncommon realm of honor, where my pastor's vision is my vision. I own it. My personal success is second to my church's success. I will die to self daily to see the church move forward. I stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before me and surrendered their lives, and I will do the same. I will give every ounce of my life to this work with no regard for credit, positions, or titles. I will my apologies. I will leverage all of my influence for the cause of Christ to see his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I'm an uncommon church builder. I am leading second. And that's the heart of this podcast. And there's 6 seasons in. I would say there's 3 where I'm just kind of like, that feels more like a sales pitch. But the rest of them are absolutely phenomenal. And so what I want to say to all of us here is that if you're feeling stuck, sometimes it can be that we have too much on our plate. But sometimes it can be that we need to have better organization, right? And it's a little bit of attention. I love this word. It's about living in attention, and it's about having rhythms. Because when I was hired, at every step that my hours have changed, Pastor Brian has told us as staff, I am giving you more work than I am paying you hours for. He's straight up, he's very clear and upfront. You need to build teams if you are going to make it in ministry. And so that was like, okay, well, I've never built teams before. What does that look like? Well, great. I watched my pastor who built teams around me, and that's what I did. So, teamwork makes the dream work. We know that phrase, but we have to work through teams if we're going to build the church, and that is so much about what MFI is about, right? We want to build healthy leaders that build healthy churches. And so again, I'm going to kind of break this down here, but when I was like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? And how did I kind of take these steps? And the first part was to create margin, because I felt like I've got way too much going on. I have no margin. I have no wiggle room. I'm feeling the weight of the ministry. And so what do? Well, I need to figure out what's the priority and what's not. And what have I taken on that I'm not supposed to? And where am I overstepping out of my lane? Right? And where am I getting distracted by things that I'm not supposed to get distracted about? And how can I create more margin so that I can create more capacity? And so a couple of things, again, definition of margin is the part of a page or a sheet outside of the main body of printed or written matter, right? We have those margins, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm trying to squeeze everything onto one page, so I change narrow margins so that I can get more on there, right? And I think that's good in seasons, but we can't always live out there, right? We got to make sure that we have space in those margins. And so like Brenton shared in track 1, get clarity on your role. I just went to yes, I had a job description, but it wasn't enough, right? I needed more clarity. Hey, can you tell me what it is that I'm supposed to own? And how much of what you've given me to own do I have the authority to run with? And how much of it do I need to come back to you and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Is this okay? Right? And that's just trust building with your leader, whether it's your lead pastor or your direct report, but you need to kind of build that trust. And now it's at the point where, I've worked with Pastor Brian for 5 years. It's like, if I have an idea, it's like, yeah, you can, don't come and talk to me, just do it. And if it's wrong, I'll just mention it to you later and we'll fix it afterwards or whatever, right? And so, like I said, it's hard to know where you're going if you don't have a map or a plan. And so I remember hearing this thing where it's like, not all who wander are lost, right? That's the very trendy, not all who wander are lost, which is great. And it's true. But the reality is that we here in church ministry, we're on a mission. We're not aimlessly walking around. We have people to save, just like Pastor Samuel was talking about, right? We run after the 1, we run after the 2. That we're not satisfied with 60%. We got people that need to experience the presence of God, that need to commit their lives to him, that need to be serving in a local church. And so I'm not about just like, hey, let's just wander around aimlessly and figure things out and hope it all comes together. Pastor Mark Astis, my pastor's pastor out of Manna House Church, he says it this way: vision without implementation is fantasy. Vision without implementation is fantasy. You can have a vision, but if you don't have a plan, you're just dreaming. Yeah. And dreaming is important. Don't get me wrong. We need our visionaries. I am not one of them. I am give me a list and I am going to go do it. But it was like, okay, so my pastor's vision is to see this happen. See leaders raised up in the church. Okay, so what is the plan that I have to do in order to make that happen? And so I started with building teams, and in order to do that, I had to find leaders. And that's where I started. And I must say, I am super passionate about building leaders in the church. I'm so glad that it's part of my job now. It is what I've come to love. Leading Second definitely was the springboard for that. But it really came down to just saying like, okay, just because I could do that, just because I could turn on the coffee machine, doesn't mean I should turn on the coffee machine, right? Because if I'm busy turning on the coffee machine or trying to find the coffee sleeves, what isn't happening over here? And so it's not, well, that's beneath me. It's not that, because I started on the coffee team, right? I've started there. But if I'm trying to do every task that's on my list, I'm not doing them all. I'm not doing what I'm doing well, and I'm not empowering other people. What I realized is that when I had that mentality of, well, if I'm going to do it right, I'm going to do it myself, what I was actually telling my teams was, I don't need you. Yeah. And who wants to serve under that, right? I'm saying, I don't need you. No, I've got it. Well, I don't. I don't have it. It might be faster for me to do it myself than it is to take the time to teach you. But then it's stuck with me. I'm the bottleneck. And that's what I realized. I was the bottleneck for my ministry. And so I remember chatting with one of the people on my teams, and they were actually moving. They were heading out, and so I grabbed coffee with them, and I just said like, hey, like, how was it at church, and how was it serving? And I said, I really actually thought that you would be leading something at this point. Was that ever on your heart? And she said, yeah, but nobody ever asked me. And I thought, oh, shoot. My expectation was that a leader would come to me and say, hey, I want to lead. But there's also the reality of, hey, they don't want to overstep. They don't want to put themselves into a grabbing for the position, grabbing for the title, which honestly I appreciate. But then that means, okay, well, if I want more leaders, I need to be more active in that. Because I started out, I did grab this whiteboard for a reason. Where am I at time? I started out with me, JM, and I had first impressions. And so on a Sunday morning, I had like my door greeting team and my coffee team and the parking lot team. And we had 4 people, or pairs sometimes, on each of these, and we kind of rotated, right? Weeks 1, 2, 3, 4. We turned them to A, B, C, D, because people always thought, well, if I'm on team 3, I'm always the third Sunday. And it's like, no, because there's 5 Sundays. So anyways, that was a practical piece. But so I had these teams, and then again, this was day 1, but then 2 weeks later, it was 2 services. So I just said, hey guys, no idea what's going on. We're going to figure this out together. Can everybody just be willing to serve 2 services while I figure this out? And graciously, the team said, absolutely. We know there's a lot going on, a lot of changes. We're going to just serve both services. And then the plan is that as new people join the team, hey, do you want to serve at the 9 or at the 11? And we just kind of started to split that up. Because if I tried to do all of these things, it was going to bottleneck with me. And we were probably a church of about 100, maybe 150 at that point, maybe 200, because we were going to 2 services. And so I kind of started, in fact, I was going back through my notes and I saw like everything was on this one sheet of paper, and I was like, oh, this team, I love this team. And it was very small and manageable. And I'm so grateful for the teams now, but you remember those beginnings, right? It's a little bit nostalgic. And so I started with this, and then I realized, okay, well now we've got to have a team A and B and C and D, and each one of those roles, and then there's the 9 a.m. and 11. So I just started getting all of these boxes, and I slowly realized all of a sudden I was like, oh man, like I have way too many people under me, and there's not enough, like, yeah, I can schedule someone and say, hey, go greet at the door, and hey, when people come in, we say, welcome back to LifeSpring Church, so that if they say, well, I've never been here before, well, great, we've got a VIP card for you here, and then we can get them a Connect card, and so it kind of creates that conversation. But then what I realized is that in leading second, I'm sure I heard it, is that effective leadership is 1 to 7. It's a 1 to 7 ratio. And when I was looking at my map, it was like 1 to 60. And I was like, this is not effective leadership. I have 60 volunteers, and they're all doing a fantastic job, but there's a piece missing. There's the leadership piece, there's the care piece, there's the pastoral piece. And so I said, okay, this isn't working anymore. And I knew for a long time it wasn't. But it was like, okay, God, what does it look like and what's it supposed to be? And so I mulled it over for probably too long, 9 months, maybe 12. I was praying about it, asking God, like, what is this supposed to look like? And I realized that I needed this piece. I needed more capacity in what I was doing. I needed to be able to move the boundary a little bit further so that I had more space to grow in. And so what I did was I picked different leaders from these teams and I said, hey, you, and this is going to sound really simple, you answer my emails and you accept planning center requests. Yeah. That's a great start. And you show up when you're scheduled. And I said, these are great qualities. Hey, would you oversee this 9 a.m. team and just make sure that those people accept their requests, and you connect with them on a Sunday morning and say, hey, how are you doing? Because that was missing. When I'm running around trying to make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be, and our lights died, and Pro Presenter decided to update on a Saturday, as it always does. I don't understand why. I'm trying to fix all these things, and so I'm sitting in my chair and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? Yeah, my husband's in the hospital right now. I'm like, but you're door greeting. She's like, yeah, I just needed to be at church. And I'm like, I missed it. I missed the whole point. She's showing up because she thinks I just need a body to fill a role, but I want them to be cared for. Because it's not about what they do for us, right? It's about the person. And so I was missing that. And so what I did in October, before we brought these two churches together, not knowing at that point yet that this was happening, was I said, hey, I'm now into two ministries. I had First Impressions Ministry and Prayer Ministry. And so we had 2 services. And so we had 4 weeks of a team. This is like just ridiculous drawings, guys. I'm sorry, but it's helping me visualize. So I had week 1, 2, 3, 4 for First Impressions and Prayer Ministry. And so I said, well, this is way too many people. So I need a leader to oversee these 2 teams, a 9 and an 11 on week A. And so I called them service leaders, Sunday service leaders. And I said, okay, I'm going to identify these leaders. And honestly, it was as basic as they're consistent. I know their character. I know their heart. I know they're with us. This is something I'm actually just going to interject and isn't even in my notes, but I heard it at a conference that I was at, a Teen Church conference in August. Kevin Gerald was sharing, and he said there's five different types of people in your church. There's the cynics, which I'm sure we've all heard of. There's the critics. There's the consumers. There's the contributors, which I think we all hear, right? The difference between just the consumers and the contributors. And then there's the champions. And the difference between a contributor and a champion is a contributor is somebody who will show up and they will serve and they will fill a role and they will do what's needed to be done. And that is incredibly important, incredibly grateful. But the difference is that a champion is somebody that you can go to battle with. The champion is going to have your back no matter what. The champion is going to support you. The contributor might show up and serve coffee or do door greeting and things like that. But when you decide, hey, I'm going to move this, or I'm going to paint this a different color, or I'm going to decide we're going to have a 15-minute huddle, and they start complaining and they start doubting and they start questioning, well, if I was the leader, I would do it this way. And it's like, hey, that's great. When you're the leader, you can do it that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm open to feedback because I don't have all the answers. But when I have somebody who's going to champion me in front of everyone and say, hey, this is going to be great for the church. This is going to be awesome. Getting there 15 minutes early, we're going to get rallied up and we're going to get encouraged. And when people walk through the door, they're going to see the fire and the vision that our mission statement of loving people to life in Christ is now being exampled. And then they will come to me in private and say, hey, does it really need to be that early? Hey, yeah, this is why. Or no, hey, let's move it 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. But that's the difference between a contributor and a champion. And the champions are the ones you want to identify as the leaders, because they're going to be the ones that when you're casting vision, they're going to own it like their own. Yeah. That's the difference, right? And so for me, our whole heart and mission here at LifeSpring is like when we have our different ministries, whether it's prayer, First Impressions, youth, young adults, everything we do is just an extension of LifeSpring Church. and the vision that God has given Pastor Brian and Pastor Deanne. I'm not trying to remake my own thing. We're not trying to make a youth just this huge, out of the box, totally different than what it looks like on a Sunday morning. Now they do different songs and there's a lot of pizza involved and all those things, which are great. But it's just an extension of LifeSpring Church. We don't want to do something new. God didn't put us in charge of this thing. We get to support our lead pastors. And so I then said, okay, I need these teams, and you're going to be responsible for these people. You're going to connect with them. You're going to text them on a Monday. Hey, so excited to serve with you, because I don't have the time to do that. Not that I don't want to, it's just feasibly not possible. And so these 8 service leaders, I started to meet with them every 2 months. And after church on Sunday, I'd feed them food, because we should always start with food, in my opinion. And so I would meet with them, and my meetings with my leaders look the exact same way that Pastor Brian runs staff meetings on Wednesdays with us. I start with the wins. I start with what's going well in the church. I said, hey, can I get a copy of your agenda so that I can replicate what it is that you do for us, so that the people that will never sit in the staff room have an idea of what it's like to sit with my lead pastor and see the heart and see the vision, see how he raises up us up as leaders in the church. And so that was really a big piece for me in creating greater capacity. And I should have said this. Brenton got really into the heart and the scripture, and I just wanted to share some practical pieces with you guys today, because this was a lot of trial and error. And again, I'm still not probably doing it 100% great, and that maybe not even 80%. But hey, we're moving kingdom forward, right? And so this shift was huge, because I did this in October, and then lo and behold, in January, Pastor Brian comes to me and says, hey, just a heads up, this might be coming down the road. And I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. But these people were already in place to help me, when all of a sudden I had now my 9 and 11 a.m. coffee teams, but they had 10 a.m. coffee teams here. And so all of a sudden we were bringing these 2 teams together, and people, and we had to merge everything together, and I couldn't have done it alone. So God was already preparing me for this, which was so incredibly great. I was so grateful, because if this layer hadn't been in place, I would have been in a lot of trouble. It was already a very busy season, but this layer really changed it. So what happened is I now have these service leaders, and I'm just going to put a box here. They're service leaders overseeing prayer and first impressions. Now here I am a year later, and as we do, thank the Lord, we continue to grow. And it's now my team leaders meeting is now me and 16 people. Actually 18, because I oversee a couple other not random ministries, that sounds so bad. Other ministries in the church that are outside of these 2 things. And so my meeting, I'm now out of my 1-to-7 ratio, right? Now I'm 1-to-16. And this is a problem, because it's not effective. And so I approached 1 couple from the prayer team that's leading a service, and 1 couple from First Impression. And I said, hey, I want you to go home and pray about this, but I want you to lead this ministry. And hear my heart. These were not 2 couples that I just pulled out of my back pocket. These are couples that have been with me for years. And they not only show up and answer planning center and all those things, they have a heart and a passion. The couple that is going to be stepping into prayer ministry, they have so many ideas. They're sending me emails, hey, what if we do this? And I said, these are all great ideas. I want to do them. I'm not going to do them now, because in my head, I'm like, I'm going to invite you to lead this in 4 months, and I'm not going to do the work now. I'm going to let you own the whole thing. And so I was praying into these people for a couple of months, and I really felt confirmation to say, hey, these are going to be the next leaders. So then I take the names to Pastor Brian, and I said, hey, these are the 2 couples I want to lead this ministry. Do you know anything that I don't know? Is there anything in the eldership level where you might be aware of something that wouldn't make this a good fit? Nope. They're both great couples. I have no concerns. Absolutely. And I said, great. Got my pastors okay. I'm in alignment with the heart and the vision of the church. Now I'm going to approach them. I take them out for coffee and say, hey, this is the heart. This is the mission. This is what I want to see happen. How does that land with you? This couple, prayer couple, absolutely, 100%. This couple who I've known for 8 years, my good friend, she's like, okay, well, let me go talk to my husband. And I said, I know you're panicking a little. It's okay. It's okay to be overwhelmed and feel the weight. I've been there. I feel it daily. And that's a good place to be, because when we feel like we've got it all figured out, we're not dependent on God, right? And so she went home and they prayed about it. And within 2 days, they got back to me and said, we're honored. We would love to lead this ministry. And so I spent time and I made a 12-month transition plan for them and what that's going to look like. Now, the transition to them to actually step into leadership is about 3 months. But what I'm doing now with the team is saying, hey, if you need your date schedule change for prayer ministry, can you email this couple? They're helping me out with scheduling. And can you email this couple? They're going to be helping me out carry some of the load of ministry. So that on November 3rd, when we have our team night and I announce to everybody, these are your new ministry leaders, they're all going to be like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense. We kind of thought they were already doing it. And that makes leadership transition way easier. If they're already carrying some of that weight, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that totally makes sense. It's the same way that we appoint elders in the church, we being the eldership team. But it's like, we don't appoint somebody as an elder and say, okay, well, now you have to be an elder. We identify people that are already functioning as elders. And now we're saying, hey, we feel God has appointed you. We're going to have a confirmation vote in our church. That's how we do it. We're, as members, we don't have a legal vote, but we want to just, have a confirmation from the congregation. And so that's how we do that. And if we do it at the eldership level, that's what I want to do at my ministry level. Again, I'm not rewriting anything. I'm just doing it as an extension. And the great thing is, this is where when I hear Brenton speak, when we had actually Pastor Jason and Mary from Living Hope come and speak to our volunteers on Saturday, and I was going to kind of do a little expectations for hosting a conference, and I had to scratch through all my notes because Pastor Jason already touched on all of it. I was like, okay, we're just going to throw up the whole first page. But that's a great thing because it means that we're all doing it like the Bible has called us to, right? We don't want to be doing things, well, this is just Jackie's way. It's great when Pastor Jason, who's been leading a church for 8 years, says the exact same things that I was going to say. It means we're in alignment, we're in unity, we're doing things the same way. It's why at an MFI conference, the presence of God that I feel at my home church is the same presence that I feel at Lakemount when they're hosting, or Viva Church when they're hosting, or whatever church is hosting a conference, because there's a unity, right? MFI exists as we're non-denominational, but there's a unity of hearts, right? So the key, well, I feel like there's a lot of keys in here, but when these people then step in, this was another big part that I had to learn, is that when these service leaders now step into leading the ministry, we now have a hole in those spots. This is called the leadership vacuum. It is super important because when we identify people that can be stepping into a higher level, we now have a void, which is great because that means there's somebody here that probably needs to be stepping into it. Now we don't, and I want to be super clear about this, everybody should be serving in a local church. Every single person who comes to church and is aligned with the heart of the church should be serving. Not everybody should be sitting in a leadership role in the church. It's a big difference. Absolutely, you should be serving, but you doesn't mean you should be leading because it takes a heart. And the two things that Pastor Brian tells us is you need to be humble and you need to be teachable. Because if you aren't those things, you are not going to make it here. Because if you can't be taught, you know it all, and you don't. And if you can't be humble and be willing to say, hey, I don't have all the answers, and hey, I made a mistake, right? You are the lid on your own leadership at that point. When I talk about breaking the lid off of your leadership, the lid is you and I. We are our own lids. And that's okay. But we get to continuously keep taking that lid up and off. And so this leadership vacuum is so great because now somebody who's been serving on this team and has those same attributes is going to step into a service leader position. And now we have a hole on our door greeting team. And that new couple that just went through your Belong class or your membership meeting and says, we would love to be a part. We want to serve. Great. This is turning into like a football. Sorry, it's getting worse and worse as I'm drawing it. But now we're creating this leadership vacuum, right? And here's again, this is a big part. I feel like I'm totally out of order with my notes. I just kind of went a little off, but this is kingdom building. And it's super important because sometimes when we are pouring into these leaders, because again, now that I have this couple and this couple, I'm now not meeting with 16 people every other month. I said, hey, you're now meeting with these 8 people every 2 to 3 months. And you're meeting with these people. So now I'm not meeting with these people anymore. I'm meeting with these 4 people. And now I have brought this ratio back into alignment with effective leadership so that I can be pouring into those 4 people better than I can be trying to spread myself thin with 16 and maybe missing things and not being able to connect with them and say, hey, how is, not just like, hey, how was Sunday? How did your team show up? How is your marriage doing? How's your family life doing? How are your kids doing? These are important questions to be asking of people that are leading in our churches. And I feel like we can miss that because we get so wrapped up in the busyness of, I got to make sure the coffee machine's on and I got to make sure the door greeters have their connect cards and why isn't that person wearing a lanyard? And these are things that I think about all the time. But it's okay because now we have leaders to help step in and lead some of those things. And so now these leaders get to lead. And they should be. They should have been doing it years ago. But again, I have trouble letting go sometimes. But when I was chatting with this one couple for first impressions, and I sent her this document of like, hey, this is my expectations of the role that you're doing. She said, honestly, when I first looked at that, I was so overwhelmed. I thought, how am I going to bring people alongside? Because what I said to both of them is, you're absolutely has to be on your list of things to be doing from day one is replicating yourself. You need to be replicating yourself, so that you don't feel that weight that I felt of if I'm not here, it's all going to fall apart, so that you can take a holiday and there's somebody who knows what you do and can step in and do those things for you. But she said, you know what? The idea of having to identify people and give them opportunities and ask them to step into the role, at first I thought, well, how am I going to do that? She said, well, I took a second and realized you showed me how to do it because you did that with me. Our volunteers see how we lead them and they are going to, that's their example, right? We're the example. And so just be mindful, they're always watching, which is great. That's how I learned. That's how they should learn. And so now they're stepping into that level. And now I don't get emails on Saturday, hey, I can't make it tomorrow. Can you find a switch? Because the reality is when I send out planning center emails for a month, I think there's about 158 people on that list. And if everybody emails me back, all I do is emails. And I don't connect with leaders, and I don't connect with pastors, and I don't get to do the things that Pastor Brian has said, hey, I need you to be doing less of this stuff, and I need you to be doing more of this stuff. Because that's where he's called me for this season. And if in the next season I'm doing this stuff again, great. It's not a hierarchy. I don't feel like this is lesser or beneath me. It's just where I'm at in the season. Because what I have heard, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, I certainly have, is that we start in our life cycle of ministry and we start and it's like, oh my goodness, this is so much. I'm still trying to figure out and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to learn. And then it's like, okay, you know what? I'm kind of figuring it out. We're kind of building teams. We're going, okay, things are moving smoothly. I feel like I'm not constantly living under this tension of overwhelming weight. And then we go, okay, I've maybe been coasting too much and I've let my devotional life slide. And all of a sudden my personality is coming out too much. Too much Jackie is coming out and not enough Jesus. And now, okay, something in my life, whether personal or at church, has blown up and I'm spiraling and I'm not managing this well. And now I'm back at the beginning of, God, I need to be fully dependent on you because I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't want to have to go through this. I want to be able to stop here and say, okay, I've got this figured out. Now I'm going to go right back to God, I need you. And skip all of this drama that I've just created for myself. And I do it way too often. But this, I want to take this out. And I want to say, God, I want to learn how I'm doing, and I want to get to the point. And now I want to get back to you and say, okay, this is working well. What else do we need at church? What's the next ministry that needs to be built? What is it that we're going to see here? Maybe it's not a Sunday morning team. Maybe it's an outreach team. Maybe it's, hey, we got to start thinking about a campus. What does that look like? How can I support my pastor to see our church grow? Because I don't want to go to 3 services, but I will if I have to. So what does that look like? Or do we plant a campus or plant a church? And all of these things, these are all questions way above my pay grade. But I want to circumvent this. I want to be fully reliant on God all the time. And I don't want to just coast in my own strength and in my own understanding. And so by getting these things in alignment, we can reach more people. Because when I have this in place, which again has taken me 5 years to get there, I definitely don't have the answers. But when I can take these things off and I've created more capacity in my day, I'm a geek. I love my list. I use Monday.com, and I have, these are the things that I need to do on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And when I'm not doing those things, what do I need to get done? And my heart is that, as we know, MFI, we're a relational church. And what I have seen, which is absolutely beautiful and so necessary for the church of today, I want to make sure I'm staying on time, is that here, I'm actually going to read this. MFI Canada, we exist to facilitate and nurture meaningful relationships among member ministers, equipping and enabling them to be more effective in their callings for the purpose of building and multiplying strong local churches around the world. That's why we exist. And I've seen it, unfortunately, is that when a church goes through a hard time, a difficult season, my pastor being on the apostolic team often gets one of those phone calls and says, hey, we're going through it. How would you suggest we go through it? How can you help us? We need advice. Can you come out and talk to our leaders or talk to our elders? Or can you just help me? Because I'm drowning and I don't know what to do. And that's great. And lead pastors need that. And if you've sat in that role before, I know there's a couple of lead pastors in here, you know the value in that. But what God has really put on my heart as I was preparing this is that I feel like we need to see that in ministries, not just lead pastor tracks, not just in the lead pastor level, but in our worship ministry and our kids ministry and different ministries. And I had a lead pastor call me, and unfortunately their church was going through something absolutely horrible. It brings tears to my eyes to think about it. And she called me and she said, hey, our church is going through it. And my assistant, she has nobody to talk to. She has nobody to talk to. She can't talk to the leadership because we're part of the problem, and she's working through it. Would you just call her? Would you talk to her? Would you be a voice outside of our church that she can just be honest with and vulnerable with? And I said, absolutely. So I was texting, calling, we were on a Zoom call, and I just realized like how many people are out there that could be going through it in the church and wanting to honor the leadership by not just going and talking about all the issues with everybody else in the church, which we know is not right, because we do want to honor our leadership, right? And as long as we're not in this, Lord willing, a moral flaw or a moral failing or immoral failing, that if it's a character thing or it's a struggle or a lack of understanding, we need people to talk to, and we can kind of get into these islands. And so my heart is that we can start to be that for each other. And so that's why my email is on the board. If you guys want to write that down, I would love to just be more intentional on connecting with other people in other ministries. I might not be in your ministry, and that's totally okay. But if I can just be a voice, I've been through it here at church sometimes. I know life happens. And so I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't want to be airing my questions out and being dishonoring in any way. And so I had people that I could go to and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. These are the lies of the enemy that he's put in my mind. I need you to tell me this isn't true. Well, no, of course it's not true. Okay, but I need somebody else to tell me that. Because the spinning that I'm in right now, I can't tell myself that, right? My heart isn't there. I know it, but my heart isn't there with it. And so when we talk about MFI and we say, hey, find somebody with a colored lanyard like you and connect with them and grab phone numbers. It's not just to say, hey, I went to conference and I grabbed 3 phone numbers and they're going to stay in my phone and I'm going to forget who they are. I want to be connecting with people, and I want to be having that so that I might never, ever be involved in ministry in Ontario, but I could help leaders in Ontario with minor things. Maybe it's just like, hey, can you send me your org chart for this or something like that? I'll never minister in Ontario. Well, I should never say never. Oh, Lord willing. I like BC. But I may never minister at a church in Ontario, but I can extend my reach, right? I can minister to people in it because of the connection that we have. And that's our heart of MFI. And when I was chatting with Pastor Brian and I said, hey, this is what's on my heart, he's like, yes, that's what we're here for. That's what we're wanting to see in all levels of ministry. And so when I was sharing with our volunteer team on Saturday, and I said, hey, MFI, this is not about just serving coffee. This is not just about, hey, making sure there's food out there, which, by the way, both of those things are extremely important. It's that when pastors can come to a conference like this, pastors and leaders, please hear my heart. When I say pastor, I don't just mean lead pastors. I mean serving the local church. People's lives get changed at conference. My life got changed at a conference. I've gotten prophetic words. I experienced the presence of God in worship. And, you might be coming in just wondering, God, how am I going to make it to the next week? How am I going to get through this issue? How am I going to deal with this person? And you step into the presence of God at a conference like this, and somebody who you've never met before comes up to you and gives you the verse that you've just been praying over, or gives you the word that you're like, God, this is what I'm holding on for. And that changes everything. That means that that person continues to walk out the mission that God has given them, that they're not going to burn out of ministry, that they're not going to leave too soon, right? And so that, I just want us to be able to help and serve one another. That's the heart. That's the heart behind this. That's why I'm so grateful for these leaders, because by relieving some of this work, and again, it's not just me passing the buck and saying, hey, I don't want to answer those emails anymore. But when I do this allows me time to have those Zoom calls with the person who doesn't know if they're going to be able to serve in church anymore, doesn't understand what's going on, and how do I trust when I don't understand. Those are kingdom impacting conversations that I want to be able to have, but haven't had the chance to because of this. So when we get our organization in alignment, and when we create that margin, and most importantly, when we raise up leaders, right? When we raise up leaders to do kingdom work, that's going to allow you to do more kingdom work. And it's not so that I can say, hey, you're now stuck with me for the rest of your life. You're never leaving me. I made you this leader, and so you're stuck. We're ride or die. No, because I have 2 of my closest friends, Herman and Yolani Hukelman. They've been with us now for about 2 years. They served at Enjoy Life in Edmonton for 10 years. We did not raise those leaders up. They were raised under Len and Lori Rutten, pastors Len and Lori Rutten, and now they're serving in our house. And we get the blessing of the leadership that somebody else poured into them. That is what I want for my leaders. They're not for me, they're for the kingdom, right? And so I am doing everything that I can to pour into them, because maybe they continue to move up, but there's a lid. There is a lead pastor and no more, and that's not that we're not following the world's say of like, hey, I just got to climb that ladder. There might be another ministry that needs to be birthed out of these leaders. There might be a campus that they're going to lead. We might transplant them into a church plant. We might say, hey, there's this church that's really going through it, and they need incredible leaders to just go and serve them. You're going. We're not holding on. This is this, this is this. Right. So we want to build the kind of leaders that can make kingdom impact, not for our impact, but for the church, right? The capital C church, and not just our local church. So that is it. That is my notes. I do want to, thank you. Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
That was excellent.
I appreciate that. We do have a couple of minutes, I think, sort of, depending on who's going where. So any questions that I could maybe answer?
Did you record this?
Yes, it is recorded.
So is it available?
We're going to post it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yes, we're recording all the Trax sessions, and they will get put up. So
I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
About your structure.
Yeah.
So once you have a service leader,
Yeah.
they do all scheduling as well, or do you still create schedules and allow them to do switches?
Yeah, so because we use templates, because we have multiple volunteers serving in multiple areas, we, being myself, our kids pastor, and our worship pastor, we have a template, and I have been doing all of the scheduling for the service leaders, not to have to do that on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
But if there's a hole, if somebody declines or there's a block out, I do ask them to find somebody, and then if they can't, they reach out to me. However, these new ministry leaders will be doing it. I did a planning center training with them a couple of weeks ago. We went through planning center services and people, because anybody who's new to the church and is going to be joining the team is going to go into a people workflow. And so they'll be reaching out and onboarding. I am really no longer a face involved in this now. They are the face. They are leading this ministry. I am just there to support them and help lead some leadership development more in the behind the scenes. Because again, what I said at the beginning was not like they get the credit and I take the hit. So if something is wrong, yeah, I own that. But anything that goes well, it's them. They're doing it.
Anything that they report back to their leader, any issues that
Yes.
they're finding, and that person tells you.
Yes, so that's part of it. So without this, because I was in these boxes, again, that was too long, but because my name was in these boxes, all of these service leaders would connect with me, which is totally fine. It was the season that I was in, but it's a lot of communicating. So if they had a whole, hey, I've reached out to 8 different people and nobody can do coffee. Do you know somebody? Great. Hey, I'm actually going to ask this service leader if they can step in and train one day, so then they know how to do that. So this will move up to the ministry leaders, and the service leaders will connect directly with the ministry leaders, and they will be doing the templating and coordinating with, because we use Target to make sure, hey, we've highlighted this person's name and they're not serving anywhere else on that Sunday, and yeah, getting them connected that way. So that, for a service leader overseeing a Sunday, they are carrying weight, but my priority for them was the pastoral care of this team and connection on a Sunday morning, and less about scheduling, because I don't want them to get bogged down by that, but they will be doing that as ministry leaders now. Great question. Yeah.
What do you do on a week where, like, I don't know, you guys probably don't do communion every week, right? I don't think.
Last Sunday of the month. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what team would, or like, where would you call people to serve? And
Yeah, great question. I actually have a communion team, which has a leader. And so on the last Sunday of the month, we just put those positions into Planning Center, and we'll have a great couple like Brian and Sharon Allen right behind you. They serve as door greeters, but they'll also serve as the communion team. And so I kind of have a 9 a.m. team. Some of them do both, some just want 11. And so we plug them in. I send out the request. We do it so at the end of September, I'm putting November in so that we don't get too ahead of ourselves, but still enough notice for people in Planning Center to figure out their schedules and what works with holidays and things like that. And so for communion, they are often doing double duty, but I don't require it. It's like, hey, are you guys up to do communion? Absolutely. We'll come, we'll help prep, we'll door greet, and then when we're in the service, we do it at our last song. They'll serve communion and then do a cleanup and stuff like that. But I do have a gentleman who oversees that team, James. And so if there's scheduling and stuff, he'll reach out and find people to fill those roles so that I'm not doing that on a Sunday. Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions?
How do you
Yeah.
nurture your the
Service leaders or the ministry leaders? That's a great question. I will let you know. I'm just kidding. How do I nurture them? So with this team, again, because I'm no longer going to be meeting with the service leaders every 2 months, this team, I have said, hey, in the first 6 months that you're going to be leading a ministry, I will be meeting with you monthly and I will be connecting with you weekly. Because the weight of ministry is not just a title, it is a weight. And so I want to make sure that they are feeling supported and not just thrown into the deep end. So what does that look like? Again, they're both married. I'm close with both of these couples, but I'll either text all 3 of them or I'll just connect with the wife individually. I won't text just a guy directly. So I'll either message the couple or just the wife, and I'll just connect. Hey, how's your week doing? Hey, you have a 1-year-old. How's she sleeping? How are you feeling? How are you doing? And so the nurturing, again, I have to operate from the example that was set for me. And that's every month I get to sit down with my lead pastor and we have a one-on-one meeting and we go through how I'm doing personally and what's going on in my life. And then we get into ministry and what's happening and what are the wins and what are the challenges. And so through those relationships and just being a caring ear and wanting to know how they're doing personally. Again, if I'm just asking them about ministry, the care's not there, right? It's not about that. If we only ask them, hey, how are you doing in ministry? They're going to feel like they're just doing a role. And that's not my heart. And that's not what we want from our people, because they're going to feel like they're just doing a role. And when their time is done, they've just stepped out. And like, listen, if God's leading you, hey, we'll send you. But I want you to know that you're cared for and loved. And so for me, the nurturing is I want to make sure that I give them the credit. And I want to make sure that when they're doing good, they're saying like, hey, attaboy, attagirl, you're doing great. Hey, that was amazing. Hey, that was awesome. Because I want to make these deposits into them so that if and when something happens where I need to correct, I can take that withdrawal out and I've already got a bank built up, right? That trust needs to be there. And so I'll continue to deposit into them so that when I have to take that withdrawal, it's there. I've already built that up. Does that make sense? So it's going to be different for different people as far as nurturing goes, but that to me is just being really intentional to connect. And that's going to be different based on different people in different seasons and what they're looking for. And again, how they respond to different things. So one couple can meet with me twice a month and one can only do once a month, and that's fine. You just kind of figure, it's like your kids, right? Which I don't have, but I've heard, is that each kid responds to a parent differently, right? And so this one might need you to sit on the couch and just hold them while you watch a TV show, but this one wants you to run 5 miles with them outside with a soccer ball. It's like everybody's going to be a little bit differently, but you just got to kind of love and care and nurture in that way. But it's being very intentional and just, ask God to say like, hey, what's going to be meaningful for this person? Is it going to be giving them a word or, writing out a thank you card? Somebody just gave me a thank you card on Sunday and I was like, in tears. I was like, that meant the world to me. Words of affirmation are my thing, by the way. So yeah, not that I'm not telling you have to give me words. I'm just, wow. Did that make sense? Awesome. Yeah. So Jackie at mylifespring.ca. Send me an email. And again, like if I can help you in any way, if I can support you in any way, if I can just tell you everything that I've done wrong so that you don't make the same mistakes as me, I would love that. Please feel free to shoot me, in the email. I would love to just be texting with people and connecting and Zooms and all those things. I'm here for it. Thank you. Awesome. Appreciate you. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You not meet lots of people now. You're just meeting 4 of them.
Yeah.
Once in a while also you do not go in deeper in the meeting in the teams that are open.
That's a good question. So we do annual meetings and team nights. And so annual meetings with prayer, which is going to be a connection and then also kind of a reinforcement of vision and training, and prayer ministry as well. So what I've told both of them is that for the first meetings that we're doing this fall and in the spring, I will be there and I will still be participating in a little bit of that training so that I'm still there at the beginning, but they're going to be carrying most of that. And then at the next meeting, they're doing all of it and I'm probably just in the room. And then at the next one, I'm not there. So then it's that kind of transition where, because I've been leading these people now for years, some of them, years and years. So I don't want to be like, hey, they're your new leader. I'll see you whenever I see you in passing, running around on a Sunday morning. So I want them to know that I'm still with them, heart and soul, but these are your ministry leaders and they are going to be the people that are going to be caring for you and connecting and making sure that you're doing okay. Sound good? Awesome. You guys are released. I apologize for keeping you over. I'm here for a bit if you guys have any questions.